All right, we've had some big news go on with the University of Miami football program. Avante Williams was reinstated. Manny Navarro covers the Miami Hurricanes on a daily basis for The Athletic. Let's take a very quick break. We're going to come back for the Caneswear Miami Hurricanes report with Manny Navarro. That is next.
If you're a Miami sports fan, then there's only one store to go to, and that's Caneswear at Miami Fanwear in Davie. They're your one-stop shop for all your inner Miami CF, Canes, Dolphins, Panthers, and Marlins merchandise. They have hats, t-shirts, game day jerseys, and so much more. Located at 2511 South University Drive in Davie, and open 24/7 online at caneswear.com or innermiamiwear.com. Call them at 954-835-5597. Caneswear, the spot where inner Miami and all Miami sports fans shop.
The viewpoint statements or beliefs expressed on the following program by the host, guests, or callers are not necessarily the opinions of FantasyXS.com, Media Group Inc. ownership, management, sponsors, or website. Time for Canes fans to get what they want. Information, insight, and perspective. It's the Caneswear Miami Hurricanes Report with Manny Navarro, exclusively on the Big O Radio Show. Here's Big O and insider Manny Navarro.
All righty, folks, it is time for the Caneswear Miami Hurricanes report with the one and only Manny Navarro. There he is, the man, the myth, the legend. Follow him on Twitter at Manny_Navarro. And more importantly, visit our friends at Caneswear. And you got to get ready for that Alabama game and the rest of the season. Please go to 2511 South University Drive in Davie. Go see Brett and all the folks out there. We'll be out there at Caneswear next Wednesday, broadcasting live. So hint, hint, Manny, if you can come out on Wednesday, we'll move your Tuesday segment to Wednesday. So make sure you give me the heads up on that if you can come by and hang out with us for a couple of minutes. I know it'll be a big week that week with everything going on. But before we get to the big week, let's get to the big story. Avante Williams apparently is going to be reinstated with the team. And listen, you know where I stand on this. This is a BS technicality. Same thing that happened with Greg Hardy, that all of a sudden the witness disappears and can't, testify. And, to me, this just smells like a woman that realized, like, well, if I send him to jail, he's not going to end up going to the NFL and paying for me and the baby. And so, I almost get that feeling, and I'm sorry that I have to think that way, but I just find it kind of dirty that you're going to hide behind the technicality when you probably know that there's a good chance this happened, and you're kind of facilitating all of this, and you're sending a poor message. Your thoughts, and what have you been able to unearth reactions from inside Coral Gables?
Yeah, I wish there was some sort of public statement, right, that accompanied this. I thought in the end that's what Miami was going to do. They were going to, sort of say, hey, we're taking him back, and here's the reason. But they didn't do that. In fact, Manny Diaz's latest video, in-house interview, he just talks about the scrimmage. So no mention at all of Avante Williams. But yet, obviously, the attorney let me and a bunch of other reporters know what was going on. So I think it's kind of a weak sauce there to not come out and at least address the issue.
By the way, that fuels the fire to this story, because that means you're as nervous about doing this, and that the criticism that you're going to be held to, and you're not willing to face that criticism right now because you don't want it to overtake the hype and the story that should be in place, which is Miami, Alabama in the next week. And now this story will overtake that. And they're kind of playing this PR game right now with that.
Yeah, there's no question. No. And I reached out to the university yesterday. No responses whatsoever. I asked, can at least confirm what the lawyers are telling us? Nobody responded to me. So, I guess they'll address it when they're ready to address it. But I think it's pretty weak sauce that, this information gets out there. The lawyer basically tells us that Avante is being let back in, and there's no accompanying message. I reached out to Brenda Tracy. I don't know if you're familiar with Brenda. Are you, Big O?
No.
She's gone out to a lot of colleges. She's a gang rape survivor. That's not the kind of description.
Oh, I've heard of her. Yes.
But she's sorry. Right. I reached out to her yesterday. She's based out of Oregon, and she was raped by 4 men back in 1998. Two of them were Oregon State football players, and I think ultimately the players were suspended for one game for their part in it. And so she's gone and spoke to universities throughout the country over the years to talk about women and, domestic disputes, etc., sexual assault. And, she was on campus 2 years ago at Miami and raved about the meeting with Manny Diaz and how open he was to discussing things. I thought it would have probably been in good taste for Miami to reach out to her out of respect, right? And talk to her about the case or show her the information. But there was nothing. So, in the end, I think there's going to be a lot of women that at some point are going to bring this up. But right now, it's sort of the perfect storm for Miami. They got a game next week. Everybody's going to be paying attention to that. And I think this story is going to disappear if they're not answering any questions.
Oh yeah, it'll definitely disappear when it's all said and done. And it also shows that Manny is so desperate to win and kind of erase the memory of what's gone on so far in his first 2 years here, that he's willing to take any chance. And not that I'm going to compare the two, because Willie Williams did a lot of stupid things, but it was like, wasn't it like stealing car radios and,
Right.
stuff like that? That's not assaulting women. To me, those are completely two different things. You know what I mean? And yet Willie had screwed up a couple of times before Miami gave him the third or fourth chance, actually, that they were giving him the second chance, but really it was like his third or fourth at that point. And yet he went and burned them over and over again. And that's the risk that the university is really taking right now. And they must feel that it's worth the risk. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. Initially, when this thing first went down, I was told by a couple players and by some members of the coaching staff they didn't think he'd come back, that they would allow him back on the team. But the fact that no charges were sort of pushed forward opened the door. So, look, the bottom line is he'd be playing college football somewhere this year. Somebody would take him. He'd be allowed to be on the field, and nobody would care. And I think the bigger issue is that us as a society, these kind of issues, for the most part, unless there's an accompanying video of the abuse, most of these guys get off without a problem.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
So,
yeah.
and as a father of two, young girls, think about the future and, the kind of domestic disputes that happen in this country. It's a scary issue, man.
I know.
I wish Miami would have come out and got in front of the story instead of sort of letting it simmer on its own.
Yeah, it's there's no doubt that it's been incredibly mishandled overall. All right, so injury wise, health wise, at least from what you can tell and what you've been able to unearth, how is Miami going into this game next week?
Yeah, guys get nicked up all the time. I think from a starter's perspective, the only guys that you really have to worry about are Zion Nelson, the left tackle, who was back in practice this week, sort of working back in. The issue is, is he going to be 100% against Alabama? And what exactly is the injury? I haven't been able to get to what the root of it is, but whatever it is, it's certainly not enough that requires surgery or forces him to miss a lot of time. The expectation is he will play against Alabama, which obviously makes Miami better when he's out there on the field. You don't have to shuffle around your tackles and you have some depth behind them. So outside of that, you have some backups, some freshmen nicked up. Brian Balaam and Cameron Kitchens, your two backup safeties, were hurt, I guess, in the scrimmage, and I don't know their status. I saw a report. Somebody said they think Balaam might be out for the year. But Miami hasn't addressed any of that. So it's just rumors right now.
All right. Do you think there'll be any limitations to De'Aaron King? Do you think they'll be afraid to not? And I'm not going to say in a way like they would limit what his play is, but limit what they call or want him to do out there athletically.
Well, I don't think so. I mean, I think it's just, again, it's going to come down to De'Aaron and how he feels, right, on that knee, how much confidence he has to take off and run and be as aggressive as he's been in the past. I think so far, by all accounts, he's been playing in practice and in these scrimmages the same way he did last year. So I personally think with a better group of receivers that he's got around him, an offensive line that's a year older, I think he's going to stay in the pocket a little bit more and try to throw the ball a little bit more to show the NFL what he's capable of. I think, everybody knows he can run. He's a tremendous athlete. I think from his perspective and probably this offense's perspective, he's going to try to stay in the pocket more and deliver the ball down the field.
All right, as you know, because I don't need to tell you your sport, you're better than all of us at this. You've been following the Canes and following college football for a long time, and you're exceptional at it. You know, Saban has been winning titles with Jags at quarterback, and then all
Yeah.
of a sudden, from Jalen Hurts on, he has started to add the dynamic player to that position and has made them an even bigger threat. The other thing that you know about Nick Saban is he's not going to talk anybody up until they actually leave Alabama. And then
Yeah.
he'll tell you how much he loves Minka and how much he loves Tua and all that good stuff, right?
Right.
Well, here's this bitch talking about Bryce Young, and this is crazy, bro, and this makes me nervous as hell. Not only was I nervous about this game already, now I think I'm going to wear Depends while I'm watching the game, okay? Bryce has a really good knowledge of the offense, Saban said. He's really a bright guy. He makes good choices and decisions. He has a really good feel in the pocket, and he's played really, really well. He threw two reallys in there. Okay, then he goes, I've been pleased with his performance. We just got to get the people around him to play a little better on a more consistent basis. This dude has gone all the way out for the current quarterback in Bryce Young, and he's so convinced that his guy's good that he's going, yo, hey, shitheads, would you pick up the play around this kid? Come on, let's go. I
Yeah.
mean, this is now this makes me even more afraid of this game because it looks like they're playing a guy that is going to be pretty damn good.
Yeah, this kid, everything from what I've heard about him coming out of high school last year was he's the real deal. And, obviously, Alabama had a tremendous team last year. Mac Jones ended up becoming a first-round pick anyway, so it's not like he didn't have people in front of him to prevent him from getting on the field. He did. But the one thing you can say about this Alabama team is they lost a boatload of talented receivers to the draft the last couple of years. And really that's what made them dynamic was the playmakers they had out there wide out. Now you got a bunch of, sort of unproven guys besides Mechie. So, I think Miami going into this game can at least feel confident that, look, you're facing this future stud in his first game. As good as Trevor Lawrence turned out to be as a freshman, his first game, he was kind of average. And the receivers, like I mentioned, they're just it's new guys that are being put into that role. Aguiye Hall is a 5-star recruit for Alabama. He seems like all of them are. He's kind of the one guy who I think as a freshman that they're like, okay, this guy's going to be an absolute beast. But a lot of the other guys that they have, it's kind of like wait and see to see how good they're going to be. So
you mean they didn't pick up some transfer? There's no Saban. It's like, yeah, he picks up somebody's best receiver.
Well, I mean, look,
over to play the final year in Alabama.
Yeah, no, I mean, listen, their roster's very, very good, but I think from a pure scouting perspective, it's not like you can sit there and say, man, they've got guaranteed first round picks coming out of this, next draft, guys that are going to be absolutely going to scare you. Like I said, Mechie is a good slot receiver, a good, possession receiver. But they're depending on a lot of young guys to step up and deliver.
Crazy stuff, man. Where do you see that? I know the players were talking a little bit about, being the underdogs. How, when you talk to them, when you talk to people around them, what's the confidence level like? Because obviously nobody's counting them to actually be even competitive. Forget about winning. So I'm wondering, because, 80s Canes and early 90s Canes would have fed off of this, dude. I mean, they would have just eaten this stuff up. The problem with 80s and 90s Canes is they would have never been viewed this way. You know what I'm saying? But if you doubted them, like that FSU night where they spanked FSU 31-3 or 31-0 or whatever it was, FSU came in number 1. You remember that? That game? Something like that. If you downplay who they are, that got them to the next level at that point. Do you see dogs on this team? Because that's what you're going to need that night. You're going to need a whole bunch of, Warren Sapps and Jerome Browns and Michael Irvins, and you're going to need some dogs that they're going to step on the field and say, no, dude, we're better than you, and we're going to smack you down and prove it.
Right.
Is that attitude there?
I don't see it. I mean, did you see it last year? It's
No,
basically
I've
the
never.
same group.
I haven't seen it in years. I haven't seen it. This isn't a Manny thing, so
Right.
I've picked on Manny enough as it is. I'm not going to do this only to Manny. This is an Al Golden thing. This is the end of Larry Coker. This is Randy Shannon. This is that mojo has been gone from that program for a really long time.
Yeah, I don't get that sense at all from any of these players, to be honest with you. I mean, I think De'Aaron King is the one guy who's going into this game confident because he knows he can make plays and he's going to have to make plays. But I don't sense it on the defensive side of the ball. I don't sense anybody sort of saying, we can't wait to go out there and kick those guys' asses. There's none of that kind of conversation. And that's what you used to get in the old school Canes. But then again, when you're dominating college football the way Miami was back then, you have every reason to feel that way. I think now, you're losing to Louisiana Tech and Duke and FIU, and how do you get swagger when you're losing those games, right? I mean, there's no way to for that to naturally grow.
That's a great point on your part. How do you go from what you've shown us for the last 2 years to all of a sudden make the a leap that is Galaxian to then go and go smack down Alabama? You know what I'm saying? That's a great point. It's hard to go from 0 to 60 just like that.
And let's not forget, Nick Saban doesn't lose to chumps. He just doesn't. He doesn't lose any bad games.
No, you're right.
I mean, they've basically lost 3 games to Auburn in the last, 10, 11 years.
Yeah, you lose to Auburn, Georgia, LSU. It's understandable. I get it. I get what you're saying.
And it's all first-round picks, quarterbacks. I mean, Deshaun Watson, right, at Clemson, Trevor Lawrence. I mean, they're all beasts of players.
Yeah.
So if you think about it, what is the, the characteristics that it takes to beat Alabama? Does Miami fit that? Do they really fit that narrative with this team? So
let me spin it to you. Let's be objective about all of this, all right? Because I know we've got Canes fans that are hurting right now by us talking about this, but let me spin it to all of you out there. What do you look at Michigan? How do you view them from afar? Do you think they've got any mojo, any swag whatsoever under Harbaugh? No, they don't. In fact, you can date it back all the way to the point that they lost to Appalachian State. And as good as Appalachian State is at their own level, if you're Michigan, Ohio State, Florida State, Miami, you got no business even being challenged by Appalachian State, much less losing. And since those days and on, Michigan has no swag. Michigan can't intimidate anybody. They don't beat the elite anymore. And in a way, you just go far down south, and it's the same thing that the University of Miami is going through, and the same thing that Tennessee's gone through, and the same thing that USC is going through. And there's several schools like that used to have that swag, and it's gone. That confidence is gone. So we're not picking just on the University of Miami. fans are seeing Michigan the same way and Tennessee the same way and USC. And all we're saying is take a look in the mirror. It's the same thing that's happening in Coral Gables.
Yeah. And the one thing I'll say for Manny is he has fixed the recruiting department. They are recruiting at a much higher level. And to me, that's where it all starts. You got to stack great class upon great class upon great class. That's how you get back to being a legitimate team. Now, obviously, other programs like Michigan have done that, right? Michigan had a bunch of great recruiting classes, and people are like, well, what happened to Michigan? Or what happened to Texas? Or
Texas have been recruiting number 1 guys forever, bro.
Right.
USC out west has a stranglehold at getting talent, right? I mean, Jalen Phillips was our guy here now, right? Where the hell did we get him from? From UCLA. Right. I mean, so UCLA, USC, they have the pick of the litter out west, and yet they can't find any swag whatsoever.
Well, it all comes back to offense for me. I mean, if you look at what the difference is in college football the last 5 to 10 years, ridiculous offenses. You have to light up the scoreboard, average over 40 points a game. So I think Miami's done that. They've improved the receiver position. They've loaded up in the quarterback room. Rhett Lashley is, I think, a really good play caller. You see him catch other teams off guard all the time with his play calls. So that's the start. Now it's a matter of if Rhett Lashley gets a head coaching job like like my buddy Bruce Feldman wrote this week when he talked about the coaches that could potentially be head coaches next year, the assistants, then it's about replacing him and keeping the program going, which is what Nick Saban does every year, right? Coaches come, they go, they move on. That's what a successful program is. So Miami just has to get back to having all the ingredients that successful programs have. And, I think living in the bubble down here in South Florida, we don't pay attention to that. We don't pay attention to how other teams have gotten to be successful. And, at Clemson for Dabo Swinney, it's having the same defensive coordinator. It's having that guy locked in for years and years and years and having a system where players are comfortable. Miami's had so much upheaval, man, the last, 17 years. Every time you fire a head coach, you bring in a new guy. If he takes the wrong approach, like Al Golden did, right? Al Golden's going to come down here. Hey, I'm going to change this to a 3-4 scheme, and we're going to play with all these big, heavy, slow guys like we do in the Big Ten. You do that for 5-6 years, you set your program back a decade,
Yeah.
So
and every time I think Al Golden, I think, damn, you screwed Anthony Chickalo. You delayed, you screwed him in entering in the NFL the right way and all that, and you probably set him back a little bit. Young man just retired from the NFL and still had a solid career, by the way, in the NFL, regardless of what Al Golden tried to do to destroy it. But go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, I mean, that's it. Oh, I think, all of these great programs, these championship winning programs that have fallen on hard times, you need some level of consistency if you're going to get back. And that's what it was at Clemson. They did a great job recruiting quarterbacks. They had offensive coaches come and go, but they had the same defensive coordinator. At Bama, I mean, it recruits itself every single year, every time you're winning championships. Ohio State, you had a system there with Urban Meyer and handing off to the coaches that he had there. I mean, it just kept going. There were no major changes. Manny Diaz just came in, changed the defense. That's what changed in the last 5 years, right? The way that they're playing. Now they're recruiting to the level they need to get to, and they just got the offense to become what they want it to be. So to me, I see this as the first initial baby steps towards this program getting to where it needs to go.
There you go. Follow him on Twitter, Manny_Navarro. More importantly, catch his work there at The Athletic. Subscribe to The Athletic. It's incredibly affordable. So you can get all the coverage locally and nationally. They do great work and even some international soccer too. You can keep up with Cristiano Ronaldo's move and Messi's move and all that good stuff in the offseason. Manny, have a great weekend, my friend.
Thank you, my friend.
Are you out of quarantine yet?
Well, I've tested negative again. Unfortunately, my little one still positive. Hopefully, the next couple of days she'll be completely over it, and all of us will be able to get back to life as normal.
Well, don't worry about it. Omar also tested negative this morning, negative against the Dolphins. I'm sorry. All right. Anyway, I'll see you on Tuesday, my friend, or maybe Wednesday we'll catch.
Or maybe Wednesday.
Caneswear.
Yes.
There you go. All right,
Absolutely.
and you should be out of quarantine then. All right.
Yep, I'm hoping so.
All right, Manny.
All right,
be
buddy.
good, my brother.
Take care.
Take it easy. You got it. Got to have fun a little bit with Omar.